3 stone secrets. So, Dean, I want you to tell me about your journey to building up to a 200 kilo stone. So, a 200 kilo stone for anybody is phenomenal. So, for an under 105, like legit nearly twice body weight, I think it's a marvelous achievement. So, want to discuss a few of the strategies that you've used over the years to build that strength, and also like the technical aspect and stuff, and things that you use and you teach. And we've got some cues, some different angles that we had a discussion recently, didn't we? So it'd be good to discuss a few different angles based on a few different contexts that people can take away, listen to this, apply. So tell us about it. Like, how have you got so bloody good at stones?
To be honest, it was all peer pressure because I bought the giant stones, right? The 100 to 180. And as I was buying them, I was like, shall I just get a 200 stone? And I was like, fuck it, I'll get a 200 stone because it's badass. I've lifted a 180 like a few times, so it's like, yeah. So I was like, fuck it, I'll get a 200. And then obviously week before Brits, I was planned to finish on like a 3-3 heavy. And then I was like, I might do the 200. So I'd done the 180 for a double, and I was like, oh fuck it, I'll just do the 200. So honestly, I'm not going to pretend I planned to do that. That was just literally like draw the moment.
Yeah. But let's be honest. You can't just decide to do that if you're not strong enough. So
Yeah.
tell us tell us about how you've got strong enough to hit 180 for 2 in training. What did you hit the comp 160 for? What was it, 6?
Yeah. Like,
6, yeah.
Yeah, at the I mean that won the event. Like, it was a bit of a I could have done more if needed, sort of thing, or whatever. Like, but when it comes down to that type of stuff, I think it's all about on the day, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
what happens on the day.
So, and then at England's 2019 under 90s, what do you hit? 130, I'm going to guess between 8 and 9, roughly. What was it?
Yeah, I hit 10. We had a 140.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, but then at the 105 Midlands, we then had a 150 or 60 stone, and then it was 9. So it's always incremented and creeped up.
Yeah. For me, so if you map that out, like over the last however many 3 or 4 years or whatever, it's been consistent, significant progress. So
yeah,
let us into the secrets. Tell us about it, Dean.
So to be honest, I love stones personally. I think it's a big part, isn't it? Right? You don't like something, you're not disciplined to give it that attention. But honestly speaking, I always stand by saying that if you're a good deadlifter, you're normally a good stoner. Like, it's quite simple that the movement pattern is very similar, that the muscles recruited are very similar. When it comes to stone technique, though, I find it very important to understand how a stone moves, because one of the biggest things, just diving straight into the good stuff, like, one of the biggest things that I see people struggle with is they try and muscle a stone onto a platform. Now, it's a big fucking rock. Like, you can't throw a rock around. That's why it's a hard event, and that's why a lot of people aren't good at it. So if you're trying to throw a stone onto a platform, it's not going to work. Yeah, I think one of the big things for me is to treat a stone like an Olympic lift. So, very much like a snatch or a clean and jerk. You don't just lift it from there to there. It has to float through the air as such, if you like, and you manipulate yourself around the bar.
Yeah,
I find it very similar with a stone. Like, you can't just pick a stone up and lift it up, lift it forward, lift it right, lift it left. You have to work your body. So yeah, I think like having a stone, breaking it down into the movement patterns, working the deadlift in an efficient way first.
Yeah, we're there. Let's just finish on this point, because that's brilliant. You've said some brilliant points there about not muscling up. So big error, and people trying to muscle it up onto the platforms. You've used the weightlifting kind of approach to explain that. So to add to that, so what we're trying to do with, like, say, a kind of weightlifting approach is to keep the object, regardless of whether it's a barbell or a stone, we're trying to keep it as close. The secret is keeping the object as close to our center line as possible. Yeah, because
Yeah.
then the force that we're producing from being strong is actually being applied to the object, in this case, the stone, and it's actually having more of an effect because of the position that it's in, i.e., closer to the center line. And then you mentioned about the making it float. So what a lot of weightlifters will refer to this phenomenon as like creating weightlessness on the bar. So they'll extend, or people talk about triple extension, where basically you're jumping and your ankles, knees, and your hips are extending powerfully. And then regardless of the object, this is the magic, what I try and explain to people is, regardless of the object, if you hit that extension explosively, whatever the object it is, whether it be an 80 kilo Atlas stone, a 130, whether it be a 140 kilo barbell, you've got a split second where that object is basically zero, because it's neither going upwards nor downwards. And that is the point where, as you say, you're trying to maneuver your body around it. So key things are, for not muscling it, is keeping it close to the center line, like Dean's explained, like weightlifting. And then a massive thing that I advocate is actually using your arms to keep yourself attached to the object. The goal is with the arms is to keep the object close to this center line, not as a like prime mover, as I described, where you're trying to like lift it onto the platform or muscle it up.
Yeah.
So you were leading into the pickup. You were going to talk about the pickup as the next point.
Yeah. So obviously, the pickup for me wants to be a deadlift, right? There's no two ways about it. If you look down at a stone, it's a circle. You need to look directly in the center of the circle and imagine that's the bar of a deadlift, right? When you do that, you are picking the stone up in the most effective way, right? You see it so fucking often where people pick it up too far forward and the stone rolls backwards. It's an obvious thing. Yeah. I get it. People don't see the obvious of it, but it is when you think about it and say it out loud. They pick it too far back, it rolls forward, right? You need to get it in the fucking center of the stone. Once you've done that first phase, you need to make sure that initially, and I'm talking very detailed, specific things here because I think they matter so much. If you are to rip that off the floor with your back, you've already overexerted your back stress and you've made that feel heavier than it should feel before you've even done the main part of the movement. So again, like, I can't stress that enough. Don't fucking pick it up like a mong and think that it's okay. You know, you pick it up like that, and then you've already told your brain, "Fuck, this shit's heavy." You know, we've all done that before. And I just to reflect onto something else, a log press, right? Do a shit clean. You're negative then about the press, thinking, "Fuck, I'm already knackered." Yeah. Right, and it's exactly the same with that, isn't it? So work on that first phase of movement.
So not only the psychological aspect, but it's actually, like you say, the physiological aspect. Like neurologically, you're tricking your brain into thinking this is heavy. You're giving it too much respect because of the position, the weight of it. You're trying to produce force in, basically.
Yeah, but once you've done that part, then again, this is the breakdown phase, right? So you deadlift it. As soon as you get it to your knees, don't fucking try and get it too high and be Mr. Big Balls. Like, just sit down and lap it. You know, once you then lap it, and this is the bit we were talking about the other day about where your hands are. Now,
wait there. Let's just recap the pickup phase, because I just want to stress what you said, because it's brilliant. So keeping it dead simple, like a thing that Dean said about putting your hands in the middle of the stone. The thing that I say to people, I say, you find the equator of the stone, find the widest bit of like that you can possibly go around, and that's where to put your hands as a non-negotiable. Your hands need to go in this middle. Like Dean says, if that error and the stone's rolling towards you as you produce force, don't tolerate it. You need to move your hands. You need to move your hands central. The simple thing is, if it's rolling towards you, your hands are slightly too far forward. If it's rolling away from you, your hands are slightly too close in. So find yourself exactly in the middle. And then what I recommend from here, which is easier as you with the kind of the lighter people, is trying to line it with midfoot as close as possible. You get to a point where some people, they might have too much mass in their abdomen or whatever, so they have to go a little bit in front of midfoot. But I would find that just like the principle that we said on the first tip is try and find that center line, that equator, and align it as close to your center line as your body allows it to be. Yeah,
definitely.
So let's move on to the third point then, Dean. So you're saying about the extension and hand position here. Let's go.
Yeah, so I don't know the exact diameters of stones. I know the 200 are 22, and the only reason I know that is because we were recently talking about it. And you go from a 160, 180, and you pick a 200 up, and it's like shit. I've now got to adapt around this. It's very similar to at the minute. I'm using that JT log, the old school logs, and I've recently been, obviously for a year and a half, I've only been on the wooden log. The difference between the two, you forget sometimes. I'm good at adapting because naturally I am as a person, but also I've done enough of both of them to adapt. So when you come to this 22-inch stone, it's like, shit, this is different. I've now got to do something different with it. Obviously, I stood slightly wider because you just can't stand in the same place. And the pickup will obviously change slightly as you do the pickup. However, if you're strong enough to get 200 off the floor, happy days. But then when you come to do the hip drive and extension, it becomes vital to me at this point that your hands have to go as far over as possible to get that reach to allow the extension of the hips. Now if you're Luke Stoltman, I mean, fucking God knows what his arms are, but he could get his arms all the way round and tree hug a 200 plus stone, I'm sure, because simply the size of him. But this is the bit that I guess we were talking about the other day, where it's like, if you were to pick it up like a tree hug, I could personally do that up to probably a 140, 50, 60, somewhere around there. But after that, it then becomes very big and hard, and I can't get that extension. So that's where I would then go for the hands over the stone. If you've got enough tacky and you've applied it well and you've done well as you've built up, it won't fall out your hands at all. But it allows a better hip drive, it allows a better extension, and most importantly, it allows a better extension to be able to put onto the platform. Because it's the thing that people fail with, isn't it? When a stone gets heavy and it holds you down more, the more you hold the stone lower, the less that chance of you extending is, and that's where that becomes really hard.
Say that again. The more you hold it, the more you hold the stone lower. What? Say that again.
So if you were to hold a stone in a hug position, let's call it that hug, so central to the stone, you're holding the stone technically lower, aren't you? Because your hands are lower down the stone rather than up high. Yeah. So because your hands are lower, the weight is holding you lower, and the triple extension becomes harder.
Yeah. So do you prefer trying to hold the stone high?
Yes. The heavier the stone gets, the more important that gets for me.
Cool.
Yeah. So hands over, as in both hands, in that sort of like, what is it?
So you almost want to try and hold that stone like on your sternum, if you will.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it is the height. So if you drop into a dip position, so you're lapping it. Sorry, if you dip low enough, grip that stone, and then stand, the stone is higher up your body to then make the load easier.
Yeah. So I've got one thing against this, and I think it's different.
Yeah.
Depending on, I think the bigger you are, like I think the stone is going to start the extension higher attached to your body generally. Whereas
as in bigger gut.
Yeah, bigger like basically you want. I think the non-negotiable is you want to find that position on this with the stones attached to you, where there's no risk of it sliding down.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
And I think I find with like lighter, smaller guys and girls, including myself, since I've changed weight, like I actually feel with a lot of people, the advantage of actually holding the stone lower and towards the hip right? And the
Yep.
advantage that, like, hear me out on this. So the theory is with this that I found is that because the stone is lower, or the thing that the thing that we're lifting is actually lower and closer to the hip, and therefore the distance of the lever is shorter. Like, I actually find that a lot of people find it more efficient to stand up with any given weight, the lower it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the limitation is
The height.
like the height.
Yeah.
So what you need to make sure is that, because you're missing out on that, say you just extend normally, and if you start here, you extend, and you've already got plenty of height. So what these people have to learn how to do is to extend, like making sure they're extend fully, so the stone keeps rolling, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, no, I get it. But
So,
also, I think the emphasis there wants to be that their extension is also explosive.
yeah, for sure.
But this is where it comes down to strengths and weaknesses, right? So
Yeah.
let's just take two people, for example. Let's just say you're going to do a stone run from 100 to 180, right? Let's just say me and you, for example, right? Let's just say 100 to 180. The first 100, 120, 140, I know I could just literally go up to it, grab it anyhow, put it on top, right?
Yeah.
Just because it's light enough just to throw up there. After that, I'll then be having to like think about, I don't know how tall you are, but I'm not the tallest of people, and I know I suffer from that height thing if I'm not explosive enough.
Yeah.
So how tall are you?
Like 5'11", 5'10".
Ah, right, yeah. So I'm 5'9". So I have to really emphasize that explosive hip drive.
Yeah.
So that's where, if I was to hug it, I can't get that hip drive, and I miss out on that height. So therefore, coming over the stone and allowing it to reach higher on my body is the answer to that part there. Now, I guess if you were to look at different people, if you were to say do them all in the other way, why would that be? How would that be? Probably you're stronger in certain parts of the lift that requires you to be able to hold it lower down.
Say that again, sorry.
So you possibly could be stronger in parts of the lift that allows you to hold it lower down. So, for example, you could be like, if I was to having to hold over the top and extend, I would be maybe stronger in that back extension part, whereas you might be stronger from that lower position and be able to actually lift it upwards.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I mean, that's just me throwing random like guesses out there, because I know that how I do it is the most effective for my height and strength.
Yeah. So when I swapped over this technique, I remember, because I used to think, oh well, it feels better, but then I'm going to get caught out when I'm like loading to height, when I'm talking like, say, I don't know, like say a thing that I did a comp a couple of years ago, like one of the BNSF ones, where it started off with the high platform to like, I think it's like 65 inches that were catching people out. Like it was about head height, and I think it was a 90 or 100. And I remember feeling stronger with this technique that I've gone down to, because it's like, it's basically like, I don't know if you do Zercher squat, but like,
I've done it in the past.
If you hold like a Zercher position, you get to the point where your elbows can tolerate it or whatever. You're in a good, like, it's a lot easier to stand up any given weight than a front squat.
Yeah.
Like say if you did like, I don't know, say 160 or whatever, like you do more rep Zercher versus front squat, and just because that like, it's just a lot easier to stand up.
It's a lot less stress position.
Yeah, definitely. So that for me is like, it is the
same theory.
Same theory is like you basically, the object that we're trying to produce force to is a lot closer to the thing producing force, basically.
Yeah. But for me, it'd be interesting to test that out on a heavier and a wider stone.
Yeah.
And because, quite simply, the heavier and the wider the stone, the slower the force production becomes, right?
Yeah.
So your hip drive must slow down at that point. That would be the thing that would be interesting.
But I feel like your hip drive would be proportionally a little bit faster at any given weight, because of the position.
Because of the position, right?
Yeah, because the position, the stone, you're in that more favorable position. You know, like you said, oh well, yeah, if we start lower, you're not getting that kind of height where you just have to stand up and you've loaded it. You actually have to extend with it and be more explosive.
Yeah.
But it actually feeds into that. It makes you like able to achieve that more explosiveness, because any given weight you can you like just feels more efficient. But like I'm saying, some people just can't do this because you've got more mass on your torso, especially when you've got your like for me, when I'm really lean, like if I even with like a belt or whatever, I got to the point where it was just sliding down because there was just no mass there. So then that was where the theory came from, was like, right, why is it sliding down? Like, well, what happens if I start it in the position that it can't slide down from, because it's in the lowest
position? It's in the crease. Yeah,
because you see like some of these like you imagine like a 150 guy loading an Atlas stone, and the technique on the load very often just looks like absolutely amazing, perfect, but they don't even know why. But actually, they just like lap it and just stand up because it's in this position, because it hasn't got anywhere to slide down to. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. So here's something then, like to spin things around that would be interesting to look at. So, I'm trying to think the best way to explain this now. So let's just say the two theories, right?
Yeah.
So I would favor my theory simply from testing it out and experience for myself of doing of less bicep issue and tension.
Yeah.
And more a higher extension towards the end, obviously favoring the bigger stones because I just can't get around this big fucking stone.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So then obviously when you look at the fact that a leaner person, like you say, has less of a shelf, so therefore you'd favor the lower position. If you were to look at those two scenarios, I still would favor the high hands eventually, because you've got more variables to play with.
Right.
But again, that's not from experience, that's from thought process. You know, because what you can make your hip drive powerful, but you don't have that final extension.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I can go for making my hip drive.
Say that again. Sorry.
So using your hip crease version one.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can make your hips more powerful by just doing different systems and different techniques and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can get a bigger hip drive, but you can't work on the variable of the extension.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I still have that to play with.
I disagree. I think you can, honestly. I think
you can.
For example, like I'm like, obviously I'm not as strong as you at Stones, but like I've done like the 120 to 65 inches. That's like eye height. That you can't not fully extend with, like.
Yeah.
Like you can't just fluke that. You've got to be good at extending.
Does that come into a press though?
No.
What height is that?
No. That's like eye height.
Right.
That's like, say, load into, say, here.
Yeah.
Going, boom. I'm not pressing. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't fucking press 120D.
No, I didn't know if it was a 6-inch one, 6-foot one.
That's just like literally extending through it. And as I'm getting to, like, another little cue that I like is like, as you get into the top of it, extension, accelerating again and exploding through that last little bit. You see a lot of people will finish here.
Yeah, you've got to push through. Yeah. Like a sandbag.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas you actually get to that point where you're just near terminal, where your knees, ankles, and hips are nearly locked out. They're actually in a really, really good position there to explode again. Yeah. So, but anyway, that's another different cue. But I was thinking about the. Like we're talking about the hand position thing. So a thing that I do like about the arms over, like, and how I use it with people, I'll use it, like if they're a kind of lifter that you feel like they're just using their upper body. You see like a lot of guys who are like, say strong up. Have you seen the guy that I coach, a lad called Deck? He did the Northern qualifier. He's a good stone lifter now. He did the North qualifier. He qualified for England, but didn't do it in the 105s.
Right. I don't know.
He's got really good at stones. He's done like, what did he do? 2 sets of 2 with the 170 recently.
Nice.
And he was when he started training the stones, like he's really built up a body for, yeah, but he's got a good, big, strong upper body. And when he started lifting stones, he was just your typical, not using the lower body whatsoever, just kind of handling it with his upper body, right? And I remember red flag straight away, thinking, right, he continues doing that, I'm exposing his bicep, blah 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 blah. So actually, for a couple of years, I got him to go really high with the elbows, almost like, say, within 10-2, almost like 5-1. Yeah, because I was getting him into the point where he was constrained to learn he had to learn how to use his upper body, lower body, and explode and stuff like that. So whereas more recently, because now his pattern's completely drilled, he's not using his upper body at all. He's just using his upper body to keep connected, and he knows that, and he's really well drilled. But since we've dropped his elbows more recently, we've found that it's actually a lot more reliable in terms of grip, regardless of, like, sometimes even at our gym, like the 1 foot, like say whatever, 130, 140, 150 stone, it depends, like the drop in temperature, how shitty the, like sometimes the dust, like even week by week, it changes how reliable we are. Like a couple of degrees, like how much does tacky change and stuff like that. And you find that it's just a lot more reliable. It's a lot more reliable for him in that context to just to be a lot. Now he's at the point where he's not lifting it with his upper body, because he's drilled it for years and for a while using the lower body. But now he's got because he was using the high elbows, and then suddenly it might load the first rep, go to the second rep, and it go to load, and it just slip. And he hasn't got grip. Oh, I need more tacky on or whatever. Whereas you find that just dropping the elbows a little bit is just like the reps that it would have been costly for him slipping is like a lot more reliable with that. And if I find that,
I guess as well, you could keep that as a on the day hack, right?
Yeah,
you know, it's a little bit like that stone the other day at Brits. I went and felt them before anyway, just to see how dusty they were, and I chose the one that was less dusty. And but it's things like that, isn't it? Like, because it was dusty, I had to go to the hip crease more because my tacky wasn't gripping as well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, a way around that, if I'd have known about it, would be to put tacky just above your belly button, just so you've got that reason for that grip to still count, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And again, I've done that before. I would just personally, for the way I stone, I would always favor a higher hold.
Yeah.
And that's just so I don't struggle with that low drive. It's funny actually, because I watched Martin Lissis the other day put a video up using the hip crease as the driving point, and I don't know how short he is, but I feel he's quite short. And he was saying, like, use your hip crease as the driving force, which again is very interesting. He goes overhand but hip crease, which is a mix of both of what we're saying.
It is, but like I'm. That's why I wanted to have this discussion, because like you've given me some ideas that I will go and try and implement with different people, and I can actually think of examples in certain contexts that, well, actually, I'm going to try that with him, but not with him, or try that with her and not with her. I think it's great to just have like a broad palette of stuff and not be kind of pigeonholed into one kind of thing.
I don't know if this is a factor of it, but I've got very strong lats and long lats.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to know if that's a factor of why I favor that position. Do you know what I'm saying? I've got a very long lat head. So whether that's something that actually gets me into position, don't know. It could be a factor.
And wait, you said about Lissis combining the two, so he goes arms over but drives from the hip.
Yeah.
So actually, I find that personally, I and this is a thing that I've never read it, seen anybody else do it or anything. It's just something that got a theory on in the last year, I suppose, is whatever the position, rather than trying to hold this, like wherever the stone is, this is what I think. Wherever the stone is, we should be trying to produce as much force to keep it there as possible. So I think a lot of people
in the same place.
Yeah, regardless of whether you start at the hip or start a little bit higher. Some people,
it's got to stay where it is. Yeah.
Some people start with, you know, like say using the belt shelf and stuff. Like we should be producing force, regardless of whether you use 3 scenarios here. Whether you start from the hip, like say me, whether you start from the belt using the belt trick, like say Tim, one of the twins, he did 174 at 80 recently, and that's his technique that he used. We haven't changed him to drive from the hip. He likes the kind of the mid position,
mid stack, yeah,
and then we use like an open guy holding it high or whatever. So what I think a little error that is a subtle error that I see with people is they're trying to kind of lift the stone up like a little bit higher on they're kind of producing force upwards with their upper body that's like it's having zero effect apart from fatiguing you. So I actually prefer people to squeeze if anything, squeezed down towards the hip and almost like isometrically use the upper body to keep it as locked as possible, as close to that lowest anchor point as possible, whether it be the hip or whether it be the belt or whether it be the kind of sternum.
Yeah, agree. Well, it's a little bit like a log, isn't it? You don't hold a log press there and then move it before you press. You nest it in and then press from that place, or a dumbbell. Again, you've got to nest it in and then press your body so that the dumbbell moves with the body, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great cue. I've never heard of that. So yeah, like nest it into that rack position, regardless of you've used the example of the stone. It's a rack position. The dumbbell, the rack position. Log, the rack position. The yoke, it's the rack position. You find that position and then nest it in.
Yeah, and then that way you're able to force the production from that pit, that area, right?
Yeah, because like we've said early on in this discussion, the magic is using the weightlifting principle that you mentioned, is keeping the object, regardless of object, close to our center line. Boom, done.